welcome to the Mouse Bytes podcast. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Mouse Bytes, the show all about Disney video games, past and present. I'm your host Jeph, and I am joined as always by Clay. Hey buddy, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. It's been a kind of dreary day over here in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Very rainy and cloudy and not very. I've just been like sleepy and like not energized all day, so I'm hoping to get psyched up for this episode.
That's right. Yeah, we want to get all jazzed up for these little varmints.
Yeah, varmints, guys.
Woodland creatures.
Yeah, this is kind of starting to be us getting into the territory of, I would say, some of the bigger titles, maybe the ones that people are more familiar with. Obviously, not everybody, but I don't know. It's not, DuckTales or Lion King or Aladdin yet, but this is, we're getting closer.
I think, we're kind of on the brink of it.
Yeah, I'm not rating this game based on how good it is, but as far as like well known and like famousness, I'd say this is like a B game maybe. So it's about time we hit some of those B's.
Yeah, amen. And with that, we should tell you what that game is, although I know that you all know because you clicked play on whatever you're watching this on. But today's game is Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES. Alrighty, so as we always start off with, what the heck is this game? Clay, you want to give us a little bit of info about what it is and where it came from?
Sure. So, in case you're confusing this with another game, this is a Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers game. So it's based off the TV show from the 90s, which shared the same name. It is a side-scrolling, I don't know. It's a side-scrolling game.
Really. Yeah.
Platforming with, I should have said platforming. I don't know why I didn't think of that. And then there's also like some throwing mechanics where you're able to throw some things. There's certain games that I feel like are similar to this, but I want to say this was kind of unique for its time, at least as far as like the pickup and throw mechanics. The other thing that was really big with this game was it was very heavily and good with co-op. So it was two-player simultaneous play, which is pretty big for the NES. There wasn't a ton of those, but yeah, like I said, a lot of games I think used either this engine or a very similar one later. Like Mickey's Dangerous Chase for the Game Boy used a lot of these, like pick up a box and throw it kind of mechanic. But mostly famous for the fact that it was created by Capcom, which, as we've mentioned, we've already done an NES Capcom game here on the show when we covered Little Mermaid, and so. Yeah, Capcom was really well known for their Disney games back on the NES, and so this is another one in that family, and I would say just as good a caliber, if maybe not even a little bit higher. And so they did develop this. It released back in 1990 in Japan and North America, and then for whatever reason, Europe got it in December of 91, so a bit later for them. But as far as I know, Japan and North America kind of received it at the same time. I did read something about how there was some small things fixed before it came out in Europe because they had some extra time. So I don't know if that was the main reason why they pushed it back, because they were wanting to fix some glitches and things, or what the whole issue was. I couldn't get a concrete answer, but regardless, there's a little bit of a gap there. But early 90s, which honestly 1990, that's pretty late for the NES, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty late. Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, talking about what the heck this game is, there was a sequel to this game that did come out on the NES. I honestly don't even know what year that came out, because that had to have been even later into the into the NES days. So that's kind of crazy too, thinking on that. Other than that, there was 2 consoles that this game came out on. Technically, the NES was pretty much the main one, and then it was also ported, or however you want to call it, to the Play Choice 10, which was an arcade machine that Nintendo put out. In fact, I put a lot of time into this game on the Play Choice 10 because my father had one, and so this was one of the games we had. Because the Play Choice 10 really only played NES games.
Okay.
That was kind of its thing, and so luckily this was one of them that was put on there. So
cool.
I don't know if I first played it on there or not, but that was definitely one of the big memories I have, is playing it on there. So lastly, the only additional notes I could find, it's worth noting this game was also included on the very recently released Disney Afternoon Collection, which came out on current consoles. And so this one and the second one were both on that, which is pretty cool. If you haven't checked that out, we haven't really talked about it on the show here. It's a pretty cool game. Had a bunch of different features and added things. I think you could rewind. You could do like some speed run stuff where you could try to run through the game as fast as you can and post your speed runs and all that. So, so I just figured it'd be worth noting. I guess it did kind of technically re-release on that console as well. Other than that, I'm not sure if it's ever seen any other re-releases. So that was a pretty big deal, I guess, for it. So, so that's a lot of details in a nutshell about what this game is.
You might even say in an acorn shell, just because they're chipmunks. No, I looked it up real quick. The sequel was released in December of '93 in Japan, and then January of '94 in the U.S., and as late as September '94 in Europe. So, wow. I mean, that's bordering on Donkey Kong Country's release there, which was November of '94. So, that's insane. But
that explains why nobody's played the second one,
right? Yeah, I mean, I think anything on the NES released after '91 was usually lost because everybody was obsessed with the Genesis and the Super Nintendo at that time because of, 16 bits was better than 8. So, interesting. A lot of info there, and it's cool to see them, Capcom, kind of really getting into their own with that, whatever that engine was that they used for a lot of these games. Going along those lines, since we kind of just went in depth on what it was, we can kind of talk about our history with the game and if we have any sort of nostalgic feelings or what have you. Since you just covered what it was, I'll go ahead and start with that. And unfortunately, I have to say that I don't have any history with the game or nostalgia. I just played it for the first time when we were prepping for this episode. So I'm kind of sad that I missed out on a lot of these. Like I'd said before with like a Little Mermaid and really any of the other one of these that we cover. I didn't play any of them really as a kid, and so I missed out. Yeah, it's a bummer because like I had an NES and I had I had a love for Disney, and I say this like every episode, but just for whatever reason just didn't have any of them and didn't have access to them, so missed out on some real gems. What about you? What was your history with this one?
Well, before I do that, I had a question. Did you ever watch the show Chippendale Rescue Rangers?
Yes, absolutely, religiously.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. At least you have that.
Yep.
Like that makes it a little bit better in my eyes, anyway.
Fair enough.
As far as me, I had this game as a kid. I don't know when we got it. I have no idea what year it was. It could have been years and years after this had come out because we were a little bit behind. But I do remember playing this as a kid with my siblings. On the NES, and then I mentioned we also played it on the Play Choice 10. So I had it as a kid. I don't remember ever getting too far in it. I think we struggled with it, and for whatever reason, didn't really push ourselves to get super far in it. I think when we had an NES, we had quite a few games because they were pretty cheap at that point. Mm-hmm. And so if we struggled or just weren't enjoying ourselves, we would just move on to the next game. And so probably didn't give it completely the time it deserved. If I had only had like 2 or 3 games, I'm sure I would have got much further in this, especially because I could play with my siblings. But we were probably juggling a bunch of different games at this point, so this was a little lower on our list. But I do remember, I don't know how long ago it was, but it had to have been like 3 or 4 years ago. I remember I got a copy of this and sat down one day and played it for a while. And I remember being really surprised at how much fun I was having playing it, because it had been a while, and wasn't struggling as much as I had remembered, and was like making much better progress than I had as a kid. And so kind of caught me off guard. I remember telling a friend of mine, wow, this is actually really good. I completely I don't know if I wrote it off or if I was just like, it's a good game, but I'm all right not playing it. And so really enjoyed it. And then just this week busted it out once more and played through almost the entire game, and was having a pretty good time relatively well. Did start getting frustrated toward the end, and I'll hit on that a little bit once we go through the levels. So a little toward the end, I started saying some bad words that I shouldn't have been saying in frustrations. But still, I think it's a very endearing game, and it means a lot to me just because I also really like the show, and and I still really like this game. So that's my history with this game.
Okay, good deal. With that, we'll jump into kind of breaking down the game itself. Alright, so as always, we'll go into gameplay discussion, which will discuss visuals, the audio, the gameplay difficulty, and the story. We can start with, I think we usually start with visuals.
Yes.
Yeah, so jumping right into those, I, for one, really like the visuals of this game. I think it looks really great for an NES game, and it represents the source material very well. There's varied locations and different backgrounds for each one, and there's good character sprites, good enemy variation, for the most part. As you progress through the game, different enemy types show up, and they're animated nicely. Keeping it relative that it is an 8-bit NES game and all that in mind, I'd say it overall looks pretty good. What are your overall thoughts on the visuals?
Yeah, I wish I had like more knowledge when it came to visuals on NES games. Like, oh, this NES game looks miles better than this one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know, and so it's hard to say. I want to say that I think it overall it's pretty good. It's not straining to look at. There's nothing like overly ugly or like looks way out of place.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I think the enemy character models are good. I think Chip and Dale both look really good.
Mm-hmm.
The cutscenes look all right.
Yeah.
Not tons of detail, and some of the background of these levels, especially like the outdoors ones, they're just blue,
straight colors. Yeah.
Right. And then once you get inside, like there's the bar level where they have like striped walls, and then you get to there's like a sink level where there's like tile in the back. So every now and then I could feel like I felt like they were trying to add additional details. So really overall, it's not a bad looking game at all, I would say. There's fun little details they've added. Like when you pick up an apple and you're carrying it, little sweat drops come off your head.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the little electricity on the wires running back and forth and stuff. So I feel like they didn't like cut corners with it. It really feels like they spent the time to make it look quality. So I'd say I think it's overall pretty great. So
yeah, and I definitely agree with a lot of those points. Like that, there are some moments where the backgrounds are a little bland, but there's a lot of moments where I think they did well with like brickwork and tile work and dirt hills and just different variations that go a long way and are, if you compare it to the Marios and some of the other things where I would never say that a Mario game looks bad, but that, the backgrounds tended to just be very simplistic and repeated over and over and over again. I'd say this one has good variation overall.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Beyond that, I don't really have a whole lot else to say on the visuals. They're adequate for what they need to be, and I think for any time we do an 8-bit game, it's hard to really go in depth.
Yeah,
really-
I mean, there's 3 hearts up in the corner, and
yeah, there's UI.
yeah, that's really it. Super simple, not distracting, which
Yep.
I'm always a fan of.
Right, and it's full screen. You don't have like that, 1/3 missing like a lot of games at a time, and like the Mickey games
Totally.
and stuff. So that's great.
Totally.
I mean, that's always good. Multiple sprites on screen, animating at certain times with enemies or with your 2-player co-op. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I didn't experience any lag or
No,
any kind of crazy frame skips.
I don't
So
see any of that. And then like there's there's a little mechanic where you can like hide in the items you're holding by ducking.
yes,
You see a little eyes popping through. It's kind of the original Metal Gear. Although I don't remember if Metal Gear. I never played the original Metal Gear, so I don't know if they copied from that or if that the NES one. But either way, hiding in a box.
yes,
Totally awesome.
2 thumbs up on that.
Yeah. And then the bosses, some of them are some pretty big sprites, and those
Yeah.
are cool.
Mhm.
With good variation. The mechanics of them are maybe not super different, it looks like, but they look fun. I didn't get a chance to play any of the bosses because I suck at the game, but I did watch through a long play to make sure I was up to snuff with what was offered, and they looked great. I think we can then move on to the audio, and right off the bat, the music of the game I really liked. Again, just from mostly from a long play. There's some good level tunes, and Capcom at the time I think is pretty well known for making good Disney game music that's both original and inspired from its source material. I think, as you all know, our intro theme is from DuckTales, which is a Capcom game from the same era. So yeah. So what is your thoughts on the music of the game?
All right, so the theme song is super dope.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's literally taken straight from the show, but really good rendition for it for a chiptune. Like, I think they covered it really well.
It was like a chip tune. Huh?
Oh, I see what you did there.
Ah!
As far as the other music, I don't know if this is all original after that, or if any of this did come from the show. Unfortunately, I haven't seen enough of the show, at least in recent years. I actually watched an episode on VHS the other night, but
Nice.
yeah, it was pretty cool. But I honestly couldn't tell you. So maybe there is. I will say I think the first level music gets really annoying after a while.
Interesting. I
but
actually really
I
like the
think-
first level music, and that's all I really got through. So
And maybe that's why it gets obnoxious to me, is after a while, it's like, because as a kid I spent so much time on level 1, that I
Right,
think it
yeah.
just got to me after a while. But in the most of the rest of the levels I honestly didn't have any issues with. The level select is kind of upbeat and fun, and then depending on what level you're in, I think it has kind of a different feel. You hit the bar level, and it's a little bit more jazzy sounding and stuff. So it felt like they're actually trying to match it to the level, and not just like, here's another chiptune for another level. And so outside of that, it's hard to kind of embellish on it more than that. 'Cause once again, it is an NES game, and I know we keep using that as an excuse, but
I
Yeah.
mean, the scope of them was just smaller, and the abilities of them was too. So yeah, and to piggyback or continue on with that, like the sound effects for the game are very of their era. There's just only so much you can do when your music is taking up most of your sound channels. Your sound effects get kind of limited, or when a sound effect plays, then a little bit of the song cuts out. Like, it's just kind of classic 8-bit issues. It was never detrimental to the experience, and none of the sound effects that I recall hearing ever seemed wrong or annoying. So,
yeah.
just a little gamey in the not in the sense of gamey when you have venison or whatever, but gamey in that chiptune sound. So
Yeah, and like the boss music, I don't know if it's the same in every level, but it kind of has like a Pokemon battle
I
feel.
thought the
where
same
it's like,
thing. Okay, yeah.
da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da, 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 and it's
That's
real intense, and really pulls you in. So, but they do repeat some songs I've noticed in different levels. So they probably were trying to save some space or only had so much to work with.
Yeah.
So there was some repeating songs here and there, but really overall it's not bad music, and some of it's pretty catchy. So the fact that they repeated some of it really didn't bother me or like pull me out of it. So no issues with me. Like I said, the first level gets a little bit obnoxious, but it's super nostalgic for me anyways, and I could probably hum it if you asked me on the street how it went, you know. So, but that's, I think, just from playing it for so long. I don't know if it's necessarily like that catchy that if I heard it one time I could, you know, recite it for you a week later. But as a kid playing it, it's pretty ingrained in my brain. Definitely the intro. In fact, sometimes I hear, if I like start singing the theme song to the show, I'll hear the game version in my head, you know, the chiptune version, and not the actual like the TV show theme. So I think that says something about it.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. Alrighty, so from there, I think we've kind of covered audio pretty well, so we can jump over into the gameplay and with that, the difficulty of the game. At its core, like we mentioned, it's a 2D platformer side-scroller. There's not much, if any, variation from that, really. You essentially have Chip or Dale and or together going across the screen. You pick up items, usually crates, or sometimes, I think they're nuts, like metal nuts, not like chipmunk nuts.
Right.
That you can kind of pick up and throw and or hide in, like we mentioned. So down will crouch and hide. You can throw up, or you can throw left or right. I noticed in the first level that there's no backtracking, kind of like the original Super Mario Brothers.
Pretty much every level.
Which is interesting because at the end of getting all the way to the right, you climb up like a telephone pole, and then all of a sudden the game scrolls back right to left, and then you can't go back to the right. Like, it's fascinating that the programming is there to prevent it earlier in the stage, but then you actually do scroll back higher up, and you know, you die if you fall down below that. But
right.
Beyond that, I don't know how many other mechanics there really are. The enemies kind of have variable attacks where they charge at you or they jump really high. And a lot of them in the first level are set up to where if you're trying to speedrun it and you're not familiar with their patterns, you pretty much are guaranteed to jump into the enemies, because I think it was in the intent of the designers, which honestly is a really good way to learn the mechanics of the game and to learn the enemy patterns early on, to better prepare you for later levels. So I don't fault the game for doing that to you, because it teaches you.
Yeah.
I just happened to be really terrible at it and actually couldn't beat the first level. But
and that's not uncommon, dude. I mean, like I said, as a kid, I struggled with it, and I think a lot of people. This is a game you got to work on. Like
if I'd had the
NES
time,
games.
I could have. But yeah,
right. And it's just like it's something you got to learn. I mean, even when I picked it up this week, I wasn't getting too terribly far, and so I had to work with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then even today, like I got to I think the second to last level, and so it's just something you gotta build a little muscle memory, learn the mechanics, learn how certain things work, how certain enemies are, and then from there you can kind of work your way through quicker.
Totally.
As far as mechanic, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, I did notice a few environmental puzzles. There's one where you have to like jump on faucets to turn them off, or like there's some switches and things here and there. So
yeah,
that's cool. Add some variation. What were you gonna say?
Sorry. So one of the big things with this game is that the levels are, you can play every level in the game, but they're not all mandatory.
Yeah.
So it's a little less linear because of that. There are certain levels you just have to play to get through it. It kind of has like a Mario 3 vibe on the stage select or whatever, which is pretty cool. Excuse me. And so there's actually some levels I don't think I've ever played in this game.
Oh wow. Okay.
Just because I've either always gone a certain way or for whatever reason just never played them. And so even just watching some footage and some other playthroughs, I realize there's some other levels that have some interesting mechanics. Like there's one with you get on a boat for a very short amount of time.
Oh, cool.
It's not like very well done, but it's there. In that same level, you like pick up a hammer and you have to like beat through these walls. There's just some really like random things every now and then. There's a level where you almost for the majority of it you're moving upwards,
Okay.
Kind of has like a Battletoads X-Men or Mega Man, not X-Men.
Yeah.
And then like you said, as you move up, the below you doesn't stay there, and so if you fall, you die. So that was really the only place where I noticed that whole thing kind of bothered me, was when you're moving upwards, because makes it a little more difficult. But as far as I can tell, going to each level doesn't really provide any additional help other than being able to collect more things to get more lives.
Okay.
And so I think that's really the only reason you would want to play all the levels, is if you want to like stock up on lives and stuff. And so that's the other thing, is there's 2 collectibles I think in this game.
Yeah. I think so.
Maybe 3.
So there's flowers,
little flower token icons, and then stars.
Yeah.
And you have to collect so many to get extra lives. But the game doesn't really tell you how many you have or how many you need to get unless it's in the manual. And so you can't really keep track, which seems a little odd to me. And every now and then I think you collect enough and like a star will float in from off screen.
I read that it's 100 of the flower pots and 20 of the stars.
Okay. And so there's a lot of flowers around, so that getting 100 of those isn't as difficult as it sounds, especially in some of the later levels. They're kind of everywhere.
Okay.
But then there's also this thing that I found a couple times, has a P on it and looks like a little bottle. I don't know what it is though. It puts a P next to the C, which stands for chip, or I guess it would be the D if you were Dale.
Okay.
But I don't know what that P is all about, and I never looked it up. I probably should have tried to pull up the manual and probably say.
I think if you hit the select button while you're playing, it brings up a little menu that shows some stats, and I think that's one of them. So I have no idea what that means.
Dude, I've never even pressed select in this game.
Yeah, I was testing that out earlier today, and I found that out.
Huh.
Yeah, it's different from hitting start, because start pauses the game, but select also pauses the game, but brings up like a stat screen that I didn't understand.
Well, dang.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to look up a manual for it or something.
Yeah, I need to. I'm not entirely sure, so forgive me. I fell a little short there. Last thing, they have bombs scattered throughout some levels, which you can pick up, and if you hold them too long, they blow up on you and you get hurt.
Ouch.
I don't really know what else they provide, like as far as it's not like you need them at any point that I've seen.
You don't have to like blow holes in the wall or anything.
Right, no. And so they're just kind of there as far as I can tell.
Huh, weird.
So other than that, that's pretty much it. It's a very simple, game. There's not a lot to it. Picking up things is a little complicated because you have to hold over while pressing, was it B?
B, yeah.
Yeah. And so there's that. Takes a little bit of getting used to. And then there's also the stacking mechanic.
Right. I didn't get to that point where I used that. So I did see that though.
Yeah, and there's certain parts where you gotta, stack some of those nuts, those metal nuts on top of each other in order to get across gaps or get to certain areas. And then the final mechanic, I keep saying that, is the boss battles, I would say. Those are kind of the final things. And they're stationary battles. And really the only thing you do is throw this red ball at the bosses.
So weird.
I don't know where they got the red ball from, but
no, me neither.
Visually it draws you to it. So you're like, oh, clearly this big red circle thing is for something. And so I think naturally you just kind of want to use it. And you throw it at the bosses. So as far as I could tell, as far as I can remember, it's literally every boss is the same way. So.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. And most of them just attack you with some sort of projectile. I did see that, like the final boss literally is ashing a cigar on you, and that's what you have to avoid. so
fat cat and your cigar addiction.
Don't do drugs or smokes, kids. So yeah, that's pretty much most of the mechanics I could think of as well. Difficulty-wise, like I said, I couldn't get through the first level because I didn't really invest the time and effort into it. And you said you were kind of struggling later on in the game, so obviously it does ramp up. Would you say that it was blockbuster brutal?
No, not that far. I wouldn't say blockbuster brutal. Maybe for a kid it would be on that level, but for somebody our age or even a little bit older, I'd say it's pretty manageable.
Okay.
At
Sit
least
with
in
it
the
for
beginning.
an hour, and then you'll be able to get through it eventually.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think it definitely, the last 3 levels, which are like purposely kind of separate from the rest of the game, definitely it's where it gets a lot more intense.
Okay.
They throw a lot more at you. The enemies are just crazy and coming at you from every angle, so it does get a little bit more overwhelming toward the end, but it's totally doable. It's no Lion King, but I totally like don't judge you for struggling with the first level, because like I said, it takes a little like getting used to and working with it, and so somebody who hasn't really played the game and don't understand the mechanics, it could be a little more difficult.
Mhm.
Whether or not 2-player makes the difficulty easier, like if it makes it less hard, I honestly, it's been a while since I've done 2-player, so
Yeah, I didn't have a
I
chance to
can't-
test that, so I don't know either.
yeah, unfortunately I didn't either. But so I don't know if it like makes it harder when you have 2 people, or if it's the
Yeah.
same, and having 2 people maybe makes it easier. I would imagine it would.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yep. Fair enough. Okay, with that, I think that kind of covers all the gameplay and difficulty discussion. I don't really have anything else to add as far as difficulty beyond that. I did struggle with it. So from there, we can kind of jump into the story and go through some of the levels that we kind of touched on earlier. And yeah, we'll just jump right into that. So the story, essentially, I'm just going to read you kind of an excerpt here. The rescue rangers are going on a mission to retrieve a missing kitten for a girl named Mandy. As Gadget goes on ahead to scout the area, and Monterey Jack is sent to investigate sightings of strange mechanical dogs with Zipper, Chip and Dale proceed through the streets and into a laboratory, where they are attacked by a crazed robot. After they defeat the robot, Fat Cat appears and reveals that Mandy's kitten was just a distraction so he could kidnap Gadget and force her to work for him. Fortunately, Gadget is able to contact Chip and Dale by building a wireless phone and sending a map to them via a carrier pigeon, of all things, allowing them to navigate through the treacherous landscapes and reach Fat Cat's casino, because, of course, all big fat villains have casinos, as Ukulele has also taught us, where she's being held. After rescuing her, Gadget provides the Chipmunks with a rocket that sends them towards Fat Cat's hideout so that they may defeat him. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of straight out of what the cartoon plots were usually similar to. Nothing too crazy there, just classic kidnapping and try and find your way to the evil mastermind's lair and yada yada. So,
Yeah.
you start out in the backyard. You've got kind of some cactuses and flower pots, and climb up, like I said, a telephone pole or electrical pole, I guess we find out. And then tightrope walk the electrical wires, which somehow, even though you're not grounded, they can still electrocute you. Video games. We
Yeah,
won't judge.
guys, come on. Jeez. Cutting corners here.
When have you ever seen a chipmunk get electrocuted just walking on an electrical wire? Sheesh.
They should have hired a scientist to be
They
in on
really
this development.
Yep. I call shenanigans. So yeah, it's kind of cool that I like that you start on the ground and work your way up, and that the mechanics of the platforming really do change as you go higher. And then strangely, the telephone pole that wasn't there at the very beginning of the level, as you get from right to left at the it suddenly there's another telephone pole to climb. So we won't
A stickler.
we won't judge
Jeez.
them for level design. Hey man, gotta call it like I see it. And I didn't beat the first level, so I don't know how it ends. Do you just get to the end of the telephone cable?
You do, and then you enter a new area,
Ooh.
which is like the laboratory area.
Okay.
And so there's like, not Bunsen burners, but there's like glass. What are those things called? Like that scientists use.
Yeah, vials.
Something like that.
We'll just say vials. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there's like, you're on a desk, there's like pencils and things, and then that's where you run into these like robot rats that are pretty mean. And so yeah, you work your way through until you get to the boss. Which, by the way, when we were talking about difficulty, I totally forgot to mention this. Pretty much wherever you are in the level, if you die, It kicks you back to the beginning.
All the way back, yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
not the most gracious with that kind of stuff.
Agreed. There's also an invincibility thing you can pick up, or you touch a crate, and I think it's your little zipper friend who comes out
Zipper
and gives you invincibility.
As far as I've played, I played for like 45 minutes today. I did not see him come back in any of the other levels.
Okay.
Maybe he's in one of the levels I missed, or I didn't get. But like, it doesn't. He's not like a very prominent ability in this game, which
shows
is weird.
it to you very early on, and like right as you reach the first electrical pole. But like, yeah, I didn't. I think in the long play I saw him one other time later on.
Okay, so he is.
So he is there. Yeah.
And then, thankfully, when you hit a boss, if you die, it doesn't make you start at the beginning of the level. It does let you start at the boss.
Okay.
Which, if it wasn't for that, dude, this would be... even though the bosses aren't terribly difficult, I do die on them, and they are still a bit challenging. So, so it was a little bit more helpful there. You do only have 3 continues, I believe.
I think it's 3 continues, and you have 3 hit points as well.
That's right.
So you can get hit 3 times.
You can game over. I assume if you game over, you have to start at the very beginning of the game. I didn't game over recently, so I don't remember. But
I game over in level 1, so it didn't really make a difference.
Yeah, it wouldn't. You wouldn't have been
started right where I was.
I assume it would just make you start the whole game over after you do that. But there was a lot of times where I was very far into a level, and then I would die and have to start at the very beginning of the level, and it was pretty frustrating. Thankfully, in some of the boxes that you throw, you'll find these acorns, which give you extra hearts.
Okay, I was just about to ask. I just saw those in the tree level, which is the next one.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even know those were in there for a while, because I kind of... Originally, the way I would play is I would ignore all the boxes that you could throw, and I just try to get through the level as quick as I could.
Yeah.
But once I realized there's a lot of good stuff in them, hidden in them, I started like getting rid of clearing every area of boxes, looking for that kind of stuff. And so they're pretty generous with where they are and how many there are. Okay. They're not super scarce, so that was nice. I did appreciate that. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to kind of throw that at the difficulty a little bit just to give people a better idea.
Cool.
So after you beat the robot, you go to the next level, which is the tree village or the garden.
And this one is pretty vertical. You're climbing up the tree. There's some flying squirrels that come at you. There's some caterpillars on the branches. Is there any other enemies? I feel like those are the 2 that I just see in the...
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah.
The flying squirrels are the worst, even though they're like super cool looking because they're ninjas.
Yeah. Of course they are.
They come at you diagonally, which
and passing through everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the caterpillars will just they'll be looking and you don't know when they're gonna drop. They'll just drop down all of a sudden and you're like, ow.
It looks tricky.
This is one of those levels I had to play through it a couple times to kind of like memorize it and figure out how things worked and how to get through it. Once I got to the boss was relatively easy.
Yeah. Looks like he's just an owl that drops feathers that are easy to avoid.
Yep. And not too
throw
hard.
The famous red ball at him.
Throw that red ball that apparently we're carrying around with us. Other thing to note, at the end of every level, there's a little bonus round where you can, as quickly as possible, throw these crates or the boxes, and then there's things underneath. But literally the top middle box every time is an extra life. So you just go up and grab that. You get the best thing that you can get in there every time. It's like not random. So
well,
yeah.
Fair enough. Cool. From there, then you move on into what looks to be the bar.
It depends which way.
You can choose
either a library or
this
the bar.
This is just the one that I've got in front of me. Yeah. So so you can choose your levels, and then back to that level select screen like you mentioned. So I guess every Let's Play of this is probably different. So the one I'm watching has you in the bar.
Yes.
Now, is there always just kind of a couple that you can choose, or does it kind of branch depending on the previous level you played? Like if you play the bar second, then is there the third level have to be the other one you didn't play, or does it then open up another set of levels that would be different than if you played the library? Or do you know what I'm saying?
No. Yeah, I do. Basically, after this, so the first level's over, then you have to go to the second level. Yeah. Then you have option of B or C.
Okay.
And then after you do that, you have to do D. And then you have the option between E and F, and then you have to do G. So it's like forced to play a level, then you have an option between 2, forced to do a level,
it's
option of 2.
Kind of like
forced to
Super
do a
Mario
level.
Odyssey. I was like, there's a game I just played recently like that, and it was that. Although it does
Yeah.
eventually make you kind of go into each one, but still, like it did let you pick 1 or 2 and then kind of just move on. So
That's true.
not
Yeah.
quite to the same degree, but similar. Okay, well that's cool. I like that they were trying new stuff, and like you said, it's a little bit like Mario 3. Not everywhere in Mario 3 had a branching path, but sometimes you could kind of go the up or the down or the left or the right. So cool.
Yeah, and DuckTales also kind of let you pick what order you wanted to tackle levels. You couldn't really skip. You had to play them all, but you kind of got to. And same with Darkwing Duck, you could choose where you went first.
Okay.
So I think that was kind of a staple for Capcom, was trying to give the player some freedom and what order they wanted to tackle certain things. But like I said, if you don't want to play both levels in this, you can just play the one and move on to the next one. You don't have to play both of them. And there wasn't really a ton of reward for playing both, but that's my opinion. So
yeah. Huh. Shoot, I had another question and I've already lost it, but I just saw that there's this character in the I don't know, the kitchen level where he like kind of clones you and he looks like you and you have to kill yourself.
yeah,
Kind of funny.
yeah, clone enemies. It's
Yeah.
an interesting idea.
Creative. Yeah. So, okay, do you want to kind of go into detail on either the library or the bar, or do we just kind of...
Yeah, so just real quick, the bar kind of feels like an 80s diner bar. You got bar stools and tables. This level is a good representation of the different planes that you can stand on, or like, it's not just up or down. There's even with the laboratory level where there's the I still can't think what those things are called, the vials or whatever. They have like corks on top of them, so you can stand on top of the bottle, or you can stand on top of the cork, which is just a little bit taller.
Okay.
And so
that's cool.
this game was all about giving you different like heights or levels that you could be on at once, and there was never really a set amount that was required or like the norm, I guess.
Yeah.
And so so this was another good level like that. The bar part's not that interesting. It's not until you hit the kitchen that it gets really interesting. That's where you have the sinks that you have to jump on the nozzles to turn them off to get through.
Yeah.
Then you go to like these stoves with these cooking pots that you have to jump over. And this is where you get to one of the enemies I hate the most in this game is like this gray fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how it works, but sometimes, not always, it will just constantly keep spawning. And then it's the way it attacks is it'll come on screen and then it'll start dropping from the ceiling. And as soon as it gets to the same level as you, it will come straight at you. And so you either jump, throw something at it, or get under it. And as soon as you kill it or it flies past you, it respawns and does the same thing over and over.
Man, okay.
And
yeah, that's
so I don't know if it's a glitch or if it's intentional, because it only does it sometimes.
interesting.
But it's really annoying.
Okay.
And so that's the first place you see them. They come back later and ruin my day.
Yeah.
So then you get to the boss in the kitchen. So kitchen, bar. We have all these themes. Like, all right, so what's going to be a good boss for this one? And the fine folks over at Capcom decided a flying saucer,
a UFO with aliens.
a UFO with little goo monsters.
Of course.
I guess maybe it works with the clone alien things that are in that level.
Yeah, I guess so.
And so the ship drops these little goo guys with one eye, and then you have to throw the ball up and hit them. Yeah, little octopus-looking things. But this boss is hard, man. I don't know why. You just don't know where he's gonna drop those little guys, and and another thing about the red ball is if you get hit by your own ball, you like get stunned, and it kind of like makes you see stars, and you can't move for a second, which is pretty funny. So you throw it up in the air, and then you have to dodge that coming down, and then you have two goo monsters that are going to run in opposite directions. So it's honestly one of the more challenging, and probably, even though it's pretty simple, probably one of the better thought out bosses, if you ask me.
Okay.
But so that's that level. Not a ton.
Yeah.
I can talk about the library if you would like.
Yeah, let's just touch on it. Maybe the
just
enemy
real quickly.
types and
Yeah, there's a really cool enemy in this one, which is the kangaroo.
kangaroo with the tennis racket.
Yeah, and so I guess she or he keeps pulling tennis balls or some kind of balls out of its pouch, and then proceeds to hit them with a racket. And I don't know. It's just like
hilarious.
yeah, it's a great idea for an enemy. So
yeah.
I don't know if that's from the
Creative.
show or if they just kind of came up with that on their own, but
Yeah, I have no
it's
idea.
definitely one of the more clever enemies. So I like that.
Definitely.
Level starts off with bookshelves, all kinds of books stacked up.
Mhm.
Obviously you're small, so everything in this game, indoors or outdoors, is kind of amplified, and so eventually
Yeah.
you get up higher up, and there's ceiling fans. Oh, yep, there's one of the little fly guys invincibility moments. See, I didn't play this level recently, so I missed it. And so at the end of the level, you're kind of going from like ceiling fan to light bulb and trying not to fall down. And so this is a level where there is no boss at the end of it. You just play it, and then you go on to the next level. And I noticed that in some of the levels I played later, not every level has a boss. In fact, there's 11 levels total with only 8 bosses. So
Okay.
was that
Wonder
4
why
levels?
Yeah. 3. Yeah.
I think I don't know. I just, maybe it adds some variety, or they're like, we can't come up with enough bosses.
Yeah. Storage time. Who knows?
Yeah, one of those 2 things. So, but it's kind of nice when you get to the end of the level and it's just like, hey, you beat it. Here's the jingle and your bonus level, and you're like, oh, good. I don't have to fight a boss. I'm done. Okay, cool. That's good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a relief. I like it. It's a nice change of pace too.
Yeah. So the next level after that, I'm actually just watching the Let's Play as we do this. It looks like a toy thing. I don't know what.
Yeah, it's a toy factory, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, it says Toy Factory. But there's like presents like gift wrapped, but then there's like a bunch of bears maybe in their boxes with like the cellophane between you and them. And some kind of molded shelving, maybe. I don't know. It's interesting. It's got like, like tiled background and stuff like that. So it's like the primary enemy in this one actually looks really cool. It's these like spinning dudes with like these blue balls for arms.
Yeah, they're interesting because they'll reach below them. You can't hurt them. And so the only way you can stop them from reaching below so you can run underneath them is to throw something at them, which spins them, and then it stops them from like reaching below or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clever.
There's also these like imposter boxes in this level that are on springs. And so you'll run over like, ooh, a box, and you go to grab it, and then all of a sudden it grows eyes and it can bounce up and down. And so
it's very
you're like, oh,
Who Framed Roger Rabbit or Acme or Looney Tunes or whatever.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's funny.
And then you hit the second part of the stage, not to take it away from you.
No, keep going.
This part's kind of hard. There's these rabbits enemies
Yeah,
that
I just saw that.
they like lift up the carpet and make ripples in the carpet
Yeah.
and try to hurt you. And no matter what part of the, top or middle or whatever, they'll be there. And it's really, as soon as they spawn into the map or onto the side of the screen, they immediately start attacking. And so you really have like very little reaction time to actually react. And so you just kind of have to inch over, and then all of a sudden they spawn. And what I was doing was I would literally throw the box and jump up and backwards at the same time.
Oh man.
And it was just like this like knee jerk like panic reaction, like holy crap, and just trying to like get away from it. And so it was pretty difficult, actually. It was not the easiest thing. And then further into the level, you get these light switches, which you need boxes or to flick it up, and then you can stand on it to flip it down. And those switches controlled these chutes that would drop these big silver balls out of them.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think is it Gadget. She kind of warns you about in one of the cutscenes. So that's kind of her thing, is in between levels, she'll give you little warnings about certain things in each level. Usually it's kind of vague and it isn't overly helpful, but that was one where it's like, hey, you need to flip these switches to survive.
Oh, okay.
And so it's nice, gives you a little heads up on what you're going into, assuming you pick that level. But
right. Okay.
So that's kind of, you head toward the end of the level, and there's all these wrap packages because they're boxes, and platformers are good with boxes. And then you get to the boss for the level.
Yeah.
Would you like to explain the boss, or would you?
Well,
like
I'm
me to?
gonna just look at him and tell you what I see. So he looks like this big robot toy thing. He shoots super balls out of him that kind of fall from the sky, and you avoid those, and then you just pick up your trusty red ball and throw it at him. I don't know if there's much more to that. He's kind of got like a tank wheels and just moves back and forth.
Yeah, dodging the falling little red balls, it kind of has like a Donkey Kong Country feel to it. There's a lot of like bosses and even like Tropical Freeze where things drop and you kind of have to find the gap.
I was thinking Bowser in Super Mario World, but yeah, I totally know what you mean.
That too.
Yeah.
The hitboxes on these are janky, man.
Are they?
Yeah, it's like there was a lot of times I took hits trying to get through them that I felt like I didn't really deserve.
That sucks. I felt that in the first level with the cactuses when I was trying to jump over a cactus. Like, I would think I was jumping on time, but I'd be jumping right into the hitbox, which was above the cactus. So
yeah.
I'd imagine that happens with several items in this game. So that's unfortunate.
There's another boss that are some janky hitboxes too, but
oh well, it happens.
Yeah, it's NES.
Yeah.
Next up is the garden. We'll try to keep going through these quickly.
Yeah. Let's burn through.
Picket fences, cocoons that drop down on you, outdoors, more imposter box enemies. This is the one I was talking about where you get a hammer that you like work your way through some rocks.
Okay.
Which it also has the boat that I didn't get to check out. I wish I had played this level.
Yeah.
Looking at it, because there's quite a bit in it.
Yeah, the little bugs that pop out of the bushes look a lot like the there's like an enemy in Epic Mickey that looks just like it.
Yeah,
just kind of this like beetle bug looking thing. Looks very similar
totally
in style. So yeah.
And then toward the end of the level, it has some sand with these little beetle dudes, and then you get to a boss for the level, which is a fish that shoots lightning at
yeah,
you.
and it's kind of weird. Is that like
It's
an
a
electric fish? Yeah. But he just kind of floats around essentially, and you throw the ball at him.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So that's that one. Super easy. Following level is the sewers, which underneath there's a bunch of falling gray balls, similar to the ones from earlier.
Yeah.
You have to. This one takes advantage of, or makes you take advantage of, like a lighter jump. Because we didn't really talk about the jumping in this game.
Yeah,
but,
if you hold it down.
You hold it down, it jumps higher.
Yeah.
If you just lightly tap it, you get less of a jump. And so there's some gaps in this one. It's just a lot easier if you just kind of give it a light tap.
Okay, that's cool.
And then eventually you do make it to the upward part of the level that I was talking about earlier.
Right, the disappearing platform kind of climber Mega Man style.
Yeah, it's total Mega Man. And there are like to a rhythm. I think it's in like 3 or 4s.
Oh, okay.
And so if you kind of count it out, you can kind of, but I don't know. Eventually it was just like, I don't know what it wants me to do, but I saw an opening and I just like panicked my way to the top very quickly.
Fair enough.
I think I died like the first time I fell down into nothing. But then after that, I was just like happy to be through it. And I was like, I really hope I don't have to do that again. Cause it was a little nerve wracking, but thankfully no boss at the end of the level. Moving on to the next level, which is the casino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just based on what I'm seeing here, looks very similar to kind of the bar a little bit, where you've kind of got the chairs and then like the tabletops. The new enemy looks like this alligator guy, kind of a crocodile, and what's he got? Like
he's got a cowboy hat.
Okay, I was thinking Crocodile Dundee, but yeah. He's got a cowboy hat and a little black vest, and what does he do? He jumps? Does he have a projectile? I think he just
he just jumps, which
like the
up to this point.
Enemies.
Yeah, nothing super great. Funny thing is, if you're on the top row and you go up against him, he'll just jump out of existence.
Oh, yeah, off screen.
He jumps off screen and then he just doesn't come back. And I'm like, all right, that works. Don't have to worry about dodging that.
Yeah, very NES of him.
But I noticed there's some other enemies too that just die or just disappear if they go up top too high, and so a lot of the time I spent just playing up top, and
makes sense
for whatever reason. Then there's another enemy. It's like a rhino football player.
Okay. Let me see
Which he's kind of got a vibe from, I don't forget what that guy's name is in Super Mario
Charging
World.
Chuck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
got a Charging Chuck vibe going on.
Cool.
Surprisingly, he only takes one hit. There was an enemy in an earlier level. It's like these big, strong, like red birds or something. They take 2 hits.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I'm surprised this one doesn't too.
And so them and these Rhino football players will charge through or kick boxes. And so the boxes that you can pick up, they will get rid of if you don't like get to them quick enough. And so that was kind of an interesting change up where the enemies could kind of interact with those for once. So you make your way through the casino, and at the very end of the level, there's 2 bombs in front of the door that you just throw away, and then you're past that part. Then it goes to this blue room, which I actually really struggled with this part. Trying to remember what it was that kept killing me. Maybe it wasn't this part. Then you get to the end of the level. You have to stack those metal nuts up, and then you're able to jump the final gap to the end of the level, which is where you hit the next boss. I think that's a cat. I can't tell.
Looks like a cat. Yeah.
He's wearing a tuxedo top.
I would say that's a cat. He's sitting on a slot machine and throwing stuff down at you.
Coins from the slot machine.
Yeah, there you go. That would make a lot of sense. And trusty red ball.
And 2 tacks on the ground.
Oh, yeah. Just like in little gaps in the floor.
Yeah, and this is where that hitbox was really janky I was telling you about.
Very similar to Cactus, it looks like.
Right. There's like these jacks that sit directly underneath him. And so you kind of have to sit off center. But if you get like too close to it, even if you don't touch it or fall down next to it, it kept hitting me, and I was getting really frustrated. And so eventually I was just like, ugh, and I just kind of found another spot that worked. So after you beat him, you finally get Gadget back. You give her some flowers, and she puts you in a rocket, shoots you up into space, and then you proceed.
Like DuckTales.
You proceed to land back down closer to the end of the game, which I thought was a very strange way to travel. Who travels up into space to come back down to Earth at a different?
She puts you into orbit and then brings you back to Earth.
Right. I was like, okay, I guess she's known for having gadgets, obviously, and so rocket. I don't know why
not?
They have their own flying like helicopter thing in the show, though.
Like the flying hot dog, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, we don't want to animate that. We're just gonna do a rocket because rockets are easy to make. Everyone knows how to make a rocket, and so it felt a little lazy. But it's really a stretch to gripe about it. But so then this is where the game really gets hard, dude. This level kicked my butt. I eventually did beat it, but man, I thought this was gonna be the end for me. So the last 3 levels are mandatory. Can't choose what you get. Got the harbor, turbo fans, and the dangerous factory.
Okay.
Would you like to describe what you're seeing with the harbor?
So this one, to me, it looks like a sewer. It looks like there's a bunch of pipes.
Yeah, I don't know why they called it harbor.
Crabs, flying squirrels are back.
What the heck? The freaking flying squirrels are back.
Random as heck, but yeah. The crabs will occasionally just shoot out bubbles that will come out and kind of 1 straight down and then 2 down and to the left and right, which looks like a pain to avoid. There's a lot of vertical and horizontal movement in here and different paths where you have to kind of avoid a main stopping point and go up and then back down and up and down through the pipes. The background texture is really cool here. It's like the blue brickwork, and there's some grates that are opening that look like they kind of have stuff running out of them a little bit. It's kind of different color. So, there's that. And then it looks like eventually you get to another phase of it where there's a little more white. Ultimately looks about the same.
The clones come back. So you have to battle them again, which they're really easy. Then this bear comes back from an earlier level that shoots green goo at you.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But then they give you a crap ton of those flower coins in this level toward the end, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
So you make your way through that.
No boss, it looks like, on this one. So
no boss. Okay.
Interesting.
So that one was rough. Those octopus things that you were talking about that shoot bubbles or pearls or
Yeah.
whatever they are. Those guys are tough, and you have to kind of attack them from below, and so you got to throw stuff up at them, and they shoot 3 projectiles every time, and man, they got me so much.
Yeah.
And then the flying squirrels, like I mentioned, just don't make things any easier.
Okay.
So then the following level was the level that I basically rage quit on today,
Okay.
which for whatever reason it's called Turbo Fans, and you are in a person's house, and there's stacked mugs everywhere, and then there's like these thumbtacks that are obviously sharp and can hurt you. But the main thing in this level, which it's pretty much completely ripping off, like Fan Man from Mega Man. I think that's what he was called, or Wind Man, one of those two.
Okay.
And so there's these high-powered fans that push you in either direction.
Yeah, just make it hard to progress left to right. Yeah.
Right, and so you just kind of have to go slow, or then it pushes you at some thumbtacks, and you have to jump over them real quickly.
Yeah.
One thing that I struggle with, there's an enemy in this level that is like a pelican dude, and if you throw boxes at him, he eats them and throws them back at you.
Yeah.
And so I could not. So I assumed you just had to jump over him, but he's really tall, and so you have to get super close to him. And I kept dying on them, and so that was part of the reason I rage quit. I felt like I was missing something. Now watching somebody else play it, I'm realizing, I think if you throw it while his head's up,
feet,
right, like his feet, then it kills him. And so there's this part I'm looking at right now where there's a pelican on top of a fan.
Yeah, I literally just saw that.
I could not get past this part. I kept dying because I was trying to jump over him.
So it looks like being
and it probably is. Don't tell me that. That's gonna make me feel even stupider. And so I kept just trying to. And where the fan? Yeah, it literally is. There's one right after it, and then it's the end. Yeah, it was tough. It was a very interesting. They purposely were like, this will be hard.
It's a tough enemy. Yeah. Who knew?
And so you get through that part, and then you're on to a desk part where there's a phone, and back to the robot mice. They come back.
Yeah.
Another invincibility fly guy.
I saw. Yeah.
I would have got to him if I had gotten a little bit further.
Looks like some drug scales.
Drug scales, got to have those. So weigh out those things. And then you have a boss who is a caterpillar who his body falls to pieces. Lovely. And you have to dodge them, and then he comes back together, and you continue to throw your trusty red ball that you have. Yeah. And eventually dies. He doesn't look terribly hard, but he's probably harder than he looks.
I guess his bits when they attack, they kind of bounce erratically, so it's a challenge, but it doesn't look super hard. So there you then move into the dangerous factory. This one's got conveyor belt mechanic, which is not super dissimilar to the fan mechanic, where it's like if you're on the conveyor, I mean, it's similar to the conveyor belts in like some of the Marios and stuff, like Mario 3. Or at least I'm thinking Mario Maker. I actually don't know what those conveyor belts are from. But essentially, if you're running against the conveyor belt, you go slow. And if you're running with it, you kind of move fast. And it's the challenge of avoiding the enemies and the rhino guys. And then once you get past that part, you're up into kind of a more factory part where there looks to be weasels and fedoras.
Where did the weasels come from? That's a Mickey thing.
Right. I was going to say that's like a bunch of other Disney properties use weasels and fedoras, but okay. It looks like they have a literally a plunger crossbow that they're shooting at you.
Dude, we've already covered weasels like twice on this show?
At least, yeah.
Mickey Mania and the racing game that we just played.
Oh, yeah.
They're in that.
They are classic Disney villains, apparently.
They are, but I wonder if they're in the show, because I feel like...
I don't recall.
Well, that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. You get past that part, then there's this conveyor belt with like axes, and I'm just trying to think of a factory where maybe it would be cutting things that are like molded together. I don't know.
Yeah, with like axes. Battle axes.
Yeah.
But
past that part, you get the alligators again. These ones throw fedoras at you or cowboy hats at you.
Yeah, you're right. They have projectiles
now. So that's an upgrade and kind of a cool reuse of an enemy. And then you eventually get past that. I mean, some platforming up to the top, and then all of a sudden you're at the final boss, who we briefly touched on earlier.
Mr. Fat Cat himself.
Yes, and his terrible cigar.
His cigar habit and child abuse.
Yeah. And you throw the ball at him enough times, he's just sitting behind his desk, laughing at you and ashing on you, and that teaches him a lesson after you beat him. And yeah. So
I don't think I've ever seen a boss use cigar ash as an attack.
Right. Can't say that I have you there. So that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, I don't know that I have anything else on that. I think we kind of talked through it, and we're at probably a good point. Do you want to go ahead and jump into the final thoughts?
Let's do it.
All right, final thought time. All right, so ultimately this is a fun and challenging platformer from the, I would say, the golden age of the Capcom Disney tie-in platformers. Not that there is a non-golden age; it pretty much was all from this time period. I would definitely recommend it. I myself am going to kind of try and get a little bit further into it now that I've not now that I've got the time to just kind of play it and not be trying to rush towards a deadline of any variety. Yeah, it's fun. It's well made. I don't really have any complaints or anything that it's unfair. I like it and I give it a thumbs up. What about you?
All right, so as far as other Capcom games go, it's not DuckTales good, but it's definitely better than Little Mermaid. I would say, not that Little Mermaid was a bad game even. So like I'm comparing this against other good games. I haven't played enough Darkwing Duck to say for sure how it stacks against that. I never owned that one as a kid. I have it now, but no, it's definitely worth playing. Like you said, it's totally a good game. It's Capcom. It has good music, good visuals, enough variety, I would say. It's not too repetitive, I think. And if you want to spend more time with it, you can. Or if you just kind of want to rush through and play the minimum, you can totally do that as well. I mean, you can be done with this game if you're not terrible. And like, I don't know, how long was your long play? What was it?
Like 38 or 45 minutes.
Yeah, like I mean, I played for 45 minutes. I got to the second to last level. So if I worked on it a little bit, I could probably even get through it quicker. So it's not a terribly long game, especially if you know your way around. It does take a little bit of work getting to learn the mechanics, learn the levels, how the enemies work, but it's a fun one once you kind of get those things down. I think the more you play it, the more fun you'll have with it. I'm not against using save states on this game. I think if you wanted to save every level just so you didn't have to, game over and repeat stuff, I think you might have a little bit more fun with it, not having to worry about going through continues. But if you're actively pursuing collectibles, you can get quite a few extra lives in this game to keep it running. So yeah, it's a classic. I'm like I know a lot of people love this game, and we honestly probably should have had a guest on for this because I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that love this game.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
we're still working on that. But until then, we'll just keep talking about it ourselves. I'm interested to check out the second game though, because I've literally never played the second one. I might have loaded it up once on like a ROM or something, but I don't know a whole lot about it. So I'm really curious to see how that one transfers over.
Same.
So one of these days we will definitely take a look at it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll try to cover all of these from this era. So for sure. Yeah. And with that, I think we'll kind of close out the show for today. So thank you all so much for joining us this week. And as always, we ask that you, if you do like the show, give us a thumbs up or a like or a review or whatever on whatever you're listening on. As always, you can give us a follow on Twitter at mouse_bytes, BYTES, just to keep up with whatever we're releasing and when. And as always, you can find us on thenintendovillage.com. From there, you can find links to all of our episodes as well as other great shows, reviews, and other content. Our episodes are also on the Nintendo Village YouTube, so if you'd like to see gameplay along with the episodes, if you didn't happen to catch that this time, you can always check us out there as well. So thanks again, and join us for the next episode, and hope you have a great day, and always remember, if you need help, just call.
See ya!
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.